Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another brilliant and banging episode of Rantz with your boy, African King Darius. Rahabat ne temu shah to each and every one of you. Jumbo Auke Barra Saburi. It is still 11 o'clock, so technically it's still morning. So, yeah. So today I would like to talk with you guys about my theory on racial superiority. Now, racial superiority is defined as one ethnic group being deemed more superior and more important than another ethnic group. Now, we know that we have several ethnic groups. We have African Americans, we have the Hispanics, and Hispanics include anyone that it falls around the categories of anyone that basically speaks Spanish. So you have Hispanics, mostly people that are from pretty much most people who speak Spanish. Okay, you even have Puerto Ricans who fall into that same category. Then you have, of course, Caucasians and whites. You know, I don't like to adhere to those terms, white and black, because I don't think that even when you look at African Americans, we're not black. My skin's not black. My skin is brown. So I don't like to be called black. I am brown skinned. So just call me African American. You know, pretty much you guys know all of the ethnic groups. But when we look at the way society is set up right now, the ethnic group that is at the top of the food chain, of course, the more ethnic superior group are Caucasians right now. They are more catered to. But then I ask you this question. This is how we're going to break down this whole understanding of racial superiority. I'm going to break it down to you like this. What actual ethnic orientation were North Americans, meaning those in the United States of America? If you go back and do your research far back enough, before the United States was even formed to be the United States, this was land that belonged to the Navajo tribes and the Cherokees, most of the Indians. Okay, they were the dominant ethnic group, and I do believe that what ended up happening is when their land was taken from them, Caucasians became the dominant ethnic group. But see, that proves my theory that I'm about to state to you to be exactly correct, because take a look at it. When they came and took the land from the Native Americans, their ethnic group dropped down and became the minority at the time. The majority were the Caucasians. Now, where there always is a majority, there will always be a minority. Most people don't understand that. And I want you to really stop and think about this theory before you automatically jump on the fence of it. Again, my theory is this. Where there is always a majority, there will always be a minority. There will never actually be just a single set majority and majority for all. That's just not going to happen. Okay? When we look at the majority, right now, the majority are the Caucasians. Okay? With the swing and things that have happened with the Black Lives Matter movement and more attention on racial equality for African Americans, we have started to raise up above our position where we were as the minorities, and we're starting to get into the majority. So I give you this idea. Let's say if us African Americans were to become the majority, then according to my theory, where there will always be a minority, wouldn't that make Caucasians fall down to becoming the minorities? But then those that were already in the minorities, the Hispanics, the Indians, Asians, and, foreigners, period. I'm going to just say foreigners. I'm going to group them all together as foreigners, people who aren't from the United States of America. With them being included in the minority because Caucasians are the majority right now, then that creates that whole issue of, okay, well, if African Americans come up and they become the majority, then Caucasians will fall down and they will join the minorities with the Asians and foreigners and Hispanics, basically foreigners. Now, when they do that, right, because I don't want to keep repeating myself, when they do that, then that is only going to create more racial injustice in the world, because now then Caucasians will be saying that they're not getting treated equal. If you believe that we African Americans, if we were to become the majority, that we're going to treat Caucasians with the same amount of rights and respect, that's not true. Because think about it, if our biggest complaint right now is that we're not being treated with equality and we're not being treated like everybody else, and we are being treated like everybody else, because Caucasians treat everybody bad. They treat even Hispanics bad, and including Asians, anybody that's not white, blonde hair, blue eye. Okay, so they treat us and everyone else wrong. What makes you think that we won't end up doing the same thing when we become the majority? Once we become the majority and the dominant racial ethnic group, then what's going to happen is Caucasians will now want rights and want equality. We're going to end up treating them bad. We're going to end up treating everyone else bad. Come on now. The most recent thing that happened in the news of an Asian being attacked, the Asian was attacked by African American. So we would continue to treat others bad because we don't want to lose our position of being the top dominant ethnic group. And with that said, we're going to put our foot on the necks of the little man. Whenever you give out dominance towards one group, you're going to have to treat the other group less. There will always have to be a lesser, no matter what we do. Okay, that's my theory. There'll always have to be a lesser. It's not enough resource in the United States of America for us to completely give out everything. Sorry for spitting. To give out everything to everybody. Okay, we don't have enough resource in this country to be able to do that. So we outsource from other countries and get other countries to make our stuff. And then what we do is we step on the neck of the littler man and the ones who are coming in from the other countries, making our merchandise for us and stuff like that, and we treat them bad. We shouldn't be doing that. Okay? So now, I will say this. When you look at the issues, now you have to break it down like this then. Then you would say, okay, King, so then what can we do to better keep things fair between each racial ethnic group? Okay, well, I will tell you this. The way that we can actually do this to be able to be more inclusive for every racial ethnic group is by deciding to break things down like this, okay? We can look at the disparities that is happening to each racial ethnic group. What are the disparities that are happening towards African Americans right now? Because we don't need to worry about Caucasians. Caucasians, they're getting everything. They're getting all the stuff they want. They're living a good life. Okay, so they're the top dominant racial ethnic group right now. Then we need to be able to get Caucasians up to the same bar. Now, here's how we would do this. With African Americans, what we can do is we can start giving them the same type of abilities that Caucasians have. Right now, whether you're black, white, orange, green, blue, or yellow, if you're making over, I don't know, $900,000 a year, you're technically considered rich, okay? Because you're getting almost $1 million. You're technically considered rich. And the amount of taxes that you have to pay is less than the amount of taxes that somebody like me, who is only making maybe, $20,000 to $25,000 a year, a person like that can only be making, I would have to pay out higher taxes than a person who's making almost $1 million a year. That's not fair. We need to change that, and we need to start making things more fair where anybody rich would be paying the same amount of taxes as somebody in the middle class. We need to make sure everyone's paying the same amount of taxes throughout all. When you start making more money, your taxes should not get reduced. When you start making more money, you should be paying the same amount of taxes as everybody else. Now, I wanted to reiterate that point. Okay? Now then, when you start to break that down and you say, okay, we increase taxes on the rich and they start paying the same amount of taxes as the middle class, it should not be a problem that they do that. I mean, after all, they should be able to afford that. They're making a lot of money. They should be able to have that and meet that margin. So, now you have them paying the same amount of taxes as you and I. So now that they're paying the same amount of taxes as you and I, that will be able to create more money. That will be able to give up more finances in the United States of America to be able to give out more money to the middle class. Now, the middle class, if a person is making, I think it should go like this. If a person is making at least anywhere between $100,000 a year. If you're making only $100,000 a year, I think that you should be paying less taxes. You should be paying 5% less than the regular amount of the middle class. Okay, I'm just saying that to be more. Give me a minute. So I believe that if we were to be paying the same, if we were anyone who's making $100,000 a year, be paying 5% less than the actual regular amount that is taxed for the middle class, that will actually be able to marginalize things to be fair towards those of low income families. So, now that's just my theory. You guys can agree or disagree if you want. Okay? Now, my whole idea behind racial superiority is the fact that there will always be an ethnic group that wants to be more superior than others. We blacks believe that we are being treated unfairly, and we are. But we're not the only ones being treated unfairly. There are other racial ethnic groups being treated unfairly too. Remember, African Americans, foreigners, and anyone not from the United States of America are all grouped together as being the minorities. Okay, so if one group of the minorities raises up, that is not going to do anything for the remaining minorities. Can you actually create rights enough that, you know, we're going to be able to put African Americans up in the same category as Caucasians, and then also be inclusive towards, you know, Hispanics and foreigners that come from this country? No, we're not. Okay, we're not, because that's just going to be impossible. Now, the problem with that theory, and the problem with that, with allowing one ethnic group to be more superior than any other, is because when you go to other countries, like if African Americans were to go over to Mexico, we're not the majority. We become the minorities. The Hispanics in that country are the majorities. And that's the thing. It all does depend on what country you go to. In the United States of America, because we have no actual dominant 100% ethnic group that actually is considered American, you know, it breeds problems. We should be able to be inclusive towards everybody, because we don't have a set ethnic group that is considered American. Blonde hair, blue eyed is not considered American. Why? Because, again, after the Africans were taken from their homeland and brought over here to America and then given citizenship, and freed as slaves, the ones that decide to stay in America and have children, those children were born Americans. So now the ethnic group of it being just Caucasians became Caucasians and African Americans. And then foreigners started migrating over to this country and started settling in this country as well. And now you had whites, Caucasians, Hispanics, and so and so that now became the ethnic groups of the United States. And that makes things complicated. Okay? So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand. We might be screaming for equality, but it will never ever be equality, because even the Caucasians are not equal to us and never will be. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what you guys believe or not, they stole this land from the Native Americans. And when they took that land from the Native Americans, they became the dominant racial ethnic group. And as long as this land they still have ownership of the United States of America, the Native Americans, if they don't get it back, well, then nobody will be considered equal. Why should we be the dominant racial ethnic group to a land that doesn't belong to us? The African Americans came from Africa, okay? Our ancestors came from Africa. I do believe that we should go to Africa, and we can actually take Africa and make it as big as the United States of America. If we were to go over there and take the resources that we learned from being over here in America, because notice this, a lot of Hispanics do it. They learn tools and trades in the United States, then go back over to their homeland, and they take those tools and trades and use it in their homeland, okay? If we take what we learned from the United States over there to Africa, and we were to build Africa up, it can become, because it does have a lot of resource. Why do you think they mostly came over there to Africa? They came over to Africa because we had an abundant resource of diamond, an abundant resource of rubies. We had jewels. We had sapphires. We had some of the main jewels used today that women wear around their neck, that men get in their necklaces, and gold all of my mouth, gold all of my chains. We sing those songs, but where's that resource coming from? It's coming from Africa. So if we were to go right ahead and focus on taking our talents to Africa and build Africa up, we could actually make it a real Wakanda. Most people watched Black Panther and didn't understand the premise of what they were saying. If we took our talents and took it back to our ancestors' homeland and build it up, we would be able to counter against the United States of America, and we would be able to have another country that would be the second most dominant country. Now, it's possible that it will be first because it's more African Americans it's more African Americans in the United States of America than it is Caucasians, and that much is true. Even when when our ancestors was brought over as slaves, they brought too many people over, and it ended up being more people on the plantations, more slaves on the plantation than it was slave masters and people to control them. And the main thing they were afraid of was uprise. So, my theory on racial superiority is a simple fact that is this: as long as there will always be one dominant racial ethnic group, there's always going to be a lesser. And if we want to change things in this world, we need to start looking at making things more fair. Right now, the main thing that can change the aspect of what is considered equality in this country is the finances. Money makes the world go round. If we can fix our financial situation, then we would not actually have the issues we have today. Police brutality will go down because cops will stop getting a bunch of money funded to them for things they don't necessarily need. Money can be shuffled to teachers to give them better material to teach the children. Schools in Baltimore will have better ventilation and would have better equipment to teach the children. The middle class would actually be able to begin to afford paying their taxes, which will give money back to the government to be able to recycle out and give back to the people. We need to fix our financial situation. If we don't scream that loud enough as we scream wanting to abolish the cops, then nothing in the world will change. So what? You take the money from the cops. That is not going to fix it. We take the money from the cops, but where's that money going to go? That money is not going to go anywhere. It's going to get recycled out, and it's going to end up going towards military use. They're going to take it and put it towards military use. They're going to take that funding and say, we got to put it towards wars that we don't need. Going into other countries and destroying their racial ethnic groups, and trying to dominate put ourselves as being more superior. And this is Americans, period. Now I said Americans, period. That means that we're trying to go to another country and say we Americans are the dominant racial ethnic group, and we shouldn't be doing that in other countries. Okay? Now I know I rambled on, but that's why this is called Rantz. Thank you guys for listening. Again, if you agree with my theory, let me know. If you disagree, hey, let me know. Like I said, I do believe that at the end of the day, where there is one set dominant racial ethnic group, there is always going to be a lesser. Where there is one majority, there will always be a minority. The only way we can fix it is by tackling the problem where it starts with the finances. If we can fix the financial burdens of Americans today, then we will actually be able to have a solution to be able to make things fair for all people. Thank you guys for being on my show today. Deuces.